We're going to take this job board and turn it into something much more modern and easy to use in the next 10 minutes. But why this job boards? There's so many job boards out there. Well, I use this one in particular all the time, and it does seem to have the most design problems. UIs that have big design problems make for the better YouTube videos. But seriously, what's wrong with this UI? Isn't design kind of a relative thing? Different people think different designs are more aesthetically pleasing. But there's some things that are universally true, and if your design isn't doing them right, it performs worse than it would had you done them correctly. So let's briefly talk about the specifics of why this site is poorly designed. First of all, they're using Open Sans, which gives the site a very kind of stale, old feel. It's a font that people have seen almost everywhere now. There's a lot of fatigue, and it doesn't really have a lot of variation in the font weights. So first thing we'll do is get rid of that. They're also using a very dated, saturated color palette. It just kind of makes it feel like a site from the early 2000s, and this big saturated blue bar up here pulls visual attention very strongly. But it's just a navigation bar. You don't want to be pulling attention to a navigation bar like this. And that issue is kind of pervasive throughout the whole site. The visual hierarchy is very wonky. Of course, you've got all the colors, but you've also got this sidebar here that's pulling a lot of visual attention over here. You've got these headers that don't really provide very much value, and then there's some color over here on the RSS feed that again is pulling visual attention but not providing much value. There's also no way for me to quickly filter these jobs based on commonly used criteria, things like job type, location. I just have to scroll, and that's a very kind of old user experience. These days, users are used to interfaces that are much more interactive and much more snappy. And really, there's just not enough metadata here to help me disambiguate between job posts that are just pretty crap and job posts that are worth actually clicking on and engaging with. So anyway, we're gonna fix all of this in the next few minutes. But first, here's our style guide. Of course, we've already changed the font here. And here's the user stories. We're gonna use these stories as kind of a structure for how we're gonna build the site. So we can think of it as kind of a blueprint. But anyway, I won't delay any longer. Let's just get right into it. Starting out with the header here, there's a real easy opportunity here to lean on the existing WordPress brand and build some domain authority, but then just kind of specify that this is the job board and not actually the main WordPress.org site. And you'll also notice throughout this whole redesign that I'm trying to stick to an extremely simple kind of contemporary design. I don't want to do anything crazy fancy with like really elaborate filters. I just want to have a simple list of jobs to stick to the spirit of the existing site today. Now, one thing that the existing site got right is that they emphasized search right at the top as well, and I'm trying to recreate that same sentiment here. People come to this site to search for jobs, so a search control is kind of what they're expecting, and we just give that to them straight away right in the middle of the page. Now, the bulk of the time in this design was spent really trying to nail this search control, and I feel like that was justified because this is the primary control that users are going to be using. So I wanted to make sure the visual hierarchy was just perfect. You want users to immediately understand the context of the page, and we achieve that with the 89 WordPress Jobs title, but then be presented with a very intuitive and interactive set of controls, the search and then the filters, and in that order. Another reason that the existing site looked a little bit dated is because they were just using a really simple table layout for the jobs, and nowadays the more appropriate treatment that people are expecting is a list of kind of job cards that has the job title and then all the metadata listed out in that card. So we're switching paradigms completely, and you'll see this gives the site a really significant push towards a much more modern aesthetic. One thing that I found a little strange about the existing site is that there is the ability to create an account if you're posting jobs, but there's no way to directly access your account controls. And nowadays, the standard paradigm is to have the account menu in the upper right. So removing that up there, as well as giving the user a little notifications panel where they can click to engage in a conversation they were previously having with someone on the platform. And you're watching me go back and forth and hesitate quite a bit here because I'm just kind of realizing that although I wanted to go with that simple contemporary aesthetic, we just need some sort of separation so that there's just not a huge blast of white. There's just too much going on in one space without some sort of way to visually separate the sections. So now I'm going back and kind of revisiting that initial strategy and adding a little more separation to the containers. This separation also gives us a proper sense of a parent-child relationship. The controls clearly control what appear in the body, and that's explained to the user with this drop shadow. Since the controls are placed above the body content, there's an implication sent to the user's mind that, oh, these are the controls that will change this content. And that's a very important design concept. Now, if you've ever used any of these job boards, you'll know that one of the ways they make money is through promoting certain posts and floating them to the top of the list of jobs. So here I'm just adding an extra variant to indicate that a particular post is promoted and subsequently floated to the top of the list. And finally, since we're giving users a lot more control over the granularity of their search, it kind of makes sense to let them save that and get notifications if there's ever a new job post that fits the very specific criteria they've crafted using these filter controls. We've achieved the impossible. We've taken a UI that felt quite stale and dated and turned it into something sexy, if I do say so myself. This UI is objectively better than the previous one for many reasons, which can be broadly described as this interface is actually easier to use now. The navigation bar is rightly subdued, the interactive components are prominent and visible, the information hierarchy is corrected, my attention flows through the page like this: find WordPress jobs. Great, search. Okay, I'm searching WordPress jobs. Here are the jobs. I can then click on them to learn more about that specific position. If I were using this interface, I would be a much happier boy. But what do you think? Is this an improvement on the existing UI? Can we do even better? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Roast my design if you want to. I promise I won't take it personally. Hope you took something valuable from this one. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.